Good evening, everybody, and thank you once again for joining us at Parents Engaging Parents Beloved Community Check-In. My name is Al Therese Frazier, the Executive Director of Parents Engaging Parents. I'm here today. Um, again, just and Erica is behind the scenes, continue to work out. We want to thank her in the work that she continues to do. But today, as for the last couple of weeks, has been an opportunity for us to bring in financial understanding and empowerment with our partners, the Industrial Bank, really being able to stream live every Wednesday, and we've been blessed to be able to continue to do that for another couple of weeks going into the holiday season. So we really want to thank again Karen Highsmith, the Vice President of Management and Operations, who's joined us. And today is going to be an engagement around credit and how we manage it and how we engage the opportunity of that literacy and understanding. So our practice in our credit card usage and understanding how our credit is maximized will be discussed today. So we want to thank you for joining us, all the listeners. Like our page, subscribe to our YouTube, enjoy us in our energy on LinkedIn, but and also share. Let everybody know what we're into. Bring your comments, bring your questions. Karen is a open book for information, and I will definitely share any questions, any thoughts that want to be brought in. And also to the parents who have joined us behind stage, I want to thank you also for coming on live and being able to once again share your experience and also engage in today's opportunity of learning and building. So first off, I definitely always want to express the deep gratitude that we have for this journey, but also the people that help us do it. And that's the grassroots leaders. Grassroots is gathering resources available while supporting, sponsoring real organizing opportunities with a transitional synergy. It's led by the Real and Powerful Leader Council, and their unwavering support, and it's the backbone for what all our initiatives have been for the last several years. So we always thank them for being a part of what we've creating for our community to be able to take a grab and a hold to. But then we also want to thank our other sponsor, which is tonight Industrials Bank, bringing their time and energy to invest in what we do. And thankful to the Terrell Fund for always being supportive of us wanting to engage parents and meet them where they're at. So our mission at PEP is always to foster civic awareness, proactive community action. We aim to empower and nurture leadership cohorts, fostering transformative change for parents and community leaders. Our vision is expansive and extensive, yet we understand that we have the ability to work locally here in New Jersey and also scale up to our partners and parent engagement from across the country. So we look forward to having that opportunity and continue to move together with parents and community leaders. So tonight, we turn our focus once again to the subject close to all of our hearts and also critical to our growth, and that's financial empowerment. The North Star of this evening's discussion is once again credit and managing it, a fundamental aspect of financial wisdom. We are privileged once again, and I must definitely thank her constantly because she could be anywhere, but she came and continues to spend her time with us for the last several weeks and upcoming weeks to come. And that's Karen Highsmith, once again, the Vice President of Operation and Management, as our guide for tonight's focus on this session. Our collective journey towards financial empowerment is not just a journey of learning, but of action. Together, we stand as the forefront of change, equipped with knowledge and the power to make differences in this beloved community that we're building. As we proceed with tonight's dialogue, I encourage each of you to be immersed yourselves fully in today's engagement and discussion. The insight we share and the discussions that we have, they're just not words. It's not just words, guys. We're stepping stones to a stronger, more empowered community. Your participation, your voice is invaluable. So please do not hold back. Put the comments in, share, like our page. So let's embark on this journey together. Let's build, grow, and empower each other. Here at PEP, every step that we take is a step forward to a brighter and more resilient future for us all. So thank you again for being part of this journey. Together, we are not just a community, we are a force for change. So before we start today with this beloved community engagement, and thank Karen again for being behind the scenes and the parents who are in the live stream behind scenes. Thank you guys for waiting. I just want to share a little bit about the community building and gifts of that we are bringing together for the next month going into December. We're going to be blessed once again with our what is this? Wow, our fifth year of winter coat giveaway for children across New Jersey. That's right, our children in New Jersey, it's getting cold out there. We had little light snowflakes just yesterday, so we understand the temperature is thoroughly dropping, and we want to be able to bless our children across New Jersey that we can impact. You know, this is a huge state. We could do what we could do, but we want to make an impact. So we're going to be organizing with partners across New Jersey for a distribution for over 4,000 brand new winter coats for our children. We're going to be in Atlantic City with our friend Jackie Atkins at the Showboat Resort, where we're going to have, and this is our second time in Atlantic City. This year, we'll be giving out close to 750 coats right there alone. So come through this Saturday, December 1st and December 2nd. December 1st, that Friday, will start between 4 to 7, and that Saturday will be also distributing between 10 and 2 o'clock that afternoon. So you have 2 different days to come and collect. And thank you, Jackie and the Showboat, for giving us those extended days. It's hard to be able to get these locations that will be open. It's cold out there. We want to make sure the parents and the community are able to come inside. So we'll see you guys this weekend at the Showboat. And also this weekend, our champion and a great leader down in Burlington County will be at West Hamilton this Saturday on the 2nd with Burlington County Emergency Services Training Center. And Senator Troy Singleton and the Burlington County will be joining together to distribute over 600 coats in Burlington County this Saturday, December 2nd, at the Burlington County Emergency Center. East Orange is being blessed as well in their schools, Whitney Houston Academy and the Edward T. Browser Academy of Excellence. Also, the combined amount will be close to 500 coats. East Orange is supporting and working with parents, engaging parents. In Jersey City, December 8th, will be at the Mary Bethune Center, and with our sister and partner Angela Cares, and our leader Angela McKnight, Senator Angela McKnight, excuse me, Senator-elect Angela McKnight, and congratulations, on your leadership and your opportunity to continue in that leadership. But yes, we'll be working with Angela Cares and also distributing close to 500 coats in Jersey City, and that's once again Monday. December 8th, Saturday, December 8th. So excuse me, once again, Jersey City, Saturday, December 8th. And then we'll be in Newark with our friends and family at Rock of Life Church, Pastor Paul, December 16th, toy drive, and over 150 coats aiming to be distributed. And we'll be hitting Patterson, Passaic, Orange. We want to thank Orange also, Councilman Wilma Montague and Ross, working with us to be able to move closely to 400 coats in Orange. And Hillside will be coming to that school, the Hillside Innovation Academy, with over 150 coats. So once again, we'll be pushing this initiative throughout New Jersey. We have a couple more partners we'll be working with to once again push out over 4,000 coats in New Jersey, continuously working in community, continuously working with power, organized people, and organized resources. So with that said, I want to thank you guys. Continue to understand, yesterday was Giving Tuesday. You give on Wednesday as well. So please hit the donation button at PEPNJ.org and also see if you're in a position to come out and volunteer in those dates. So hit us in our inbox with any questions, comments, or thoughts in regards to our initiatives coming up in December. And now I bring on our guest and friend of the show. How you doing, Karen?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I gotta let the people know what's going on.
Yeah, well, you're doing some wonderful work. I'm really glad to see that there's someone out there networking with other community organizations and really donating and giving to our parents and our children in need. It's wonderful.
Listen, I can't do it without the people, without the leaders, without these organizations who could see some real grassroots leadership as possible. We talked about the difference in leadership. We have diva leadership and we have servant leadership. I continue to want to be a servant in anything that I lead because I could walk around that corner, but if nobody comes with me, I'm just taking a good walk. So it's it's about you and tonight's discussion. We're going to be talking about credit, get into, some of the weeds around how we could be efficient in utilizing credit cards, and also how we can avoid some of the pitfalls of, managing those assets. So we want to thank you again. I got a quick question, if possible. Can you give us some energy around the generation that's coming into the full of being in position to use credit cards, going to college, young parents aiming to try to figure out A to B? Can you just talk to us and just how do you see the generation, and I don't like to put labels on them, and I know they don't want them, but like Generation Z and the millennials who are walking into either the debt of credit or financial, the lack of understanding financially. What is the insight that you can give, being seasoned in career and in the financial world, to really give some insight to how we touch and move in this space before we jump into your presentation, if possible?
Sure. Well, I think that, there's a I think there's a positive and a negative. I think the positive is that many young people really understand and have seen the pitfalls of debt with someone they know or someone in their family, or they just understand that they want to get ahead and they want a quality of life and they want access and convenience, but they don't necessarily want debt. Now, I think the things that they don't understand is, some of the more technical parts of what's associated with the convenience of having a card and how to manage it. I think a lot of young people witness firsthand the issue of debt when they have to apply for financial aid if they're going to college. If they're young parents, they understand, the challenges of raising children, or just, working and needing access to additional funds for those things because they may not be in a situation where they've built up emergency funds. So I think that the positive side is they know it's available, but they don't want to get over their head. And the negative is that they need to use it, but they're not always sure of the pitfalls and the knowledge on how to manage using it so that they don't fall into a trap. So I'm hoping today's information is going to enlighten us all on, how to understand credit a little better and also how to use it to our benefit, regardless of where you are, or regardless to your generation. We all can benefit from understanding how to use it. I think you're
Thank you
on
for
mute.
oh, sorry. Thank you for that, guys, and thank you for sharing. Just want to just give some insight on just how we could think about this and presentation up once again.
So today,
So take it away.
okay, so today, we're going to talk about credit, and we chose this as one of the series to come, in the fourth episode, because we wanted to make sure there was a basic understanding about banking, and then we wanted to make sure that people understood information about the importance of their credit score and credit reports. And so today we want to talk about credit and how it can be beneficial and how you can manage it, but also to go over the different types of credit and to understand some of those terms that we kind of see in all the paperwork around credit. But do we really understand the impact that it's having on how we're using it? So I'd like to start today with going over the series. So, banking, savings, credit scores, credit reports. Today, credit. Next week, home ownership. Series 6, future savings. And Series 7, identity theft. One of the things that you'll hopefully get out of this is that I put these in a sequence that I thought made logical sense in understanding the financial industry, so to speak, and how consumers have information and access, and how they use these things to help benefit their future financial well-being. So today we're going to talk about the types of credit, those common credit terms that we kind of ignore because we're so into just having the credit card. We don't think about the terms of the credit card and how they can create problems for us if we don't fully understand them. The different types of credit cards. And then there's a different terminology that credit cards use that is similar to credit terms, but a little different. And then the whole thing about, what are inquiries, soft and hard? You hear people talking about, oh, well, if you pull my credit, what is it going to do to my credit score? So we're going to talk a little bit about, a hard inquiry versus a soft inquiry, and, how to make the distinction and watch out for both. And then there are some pitfalls for first-time credit card users that I'd like to share with everyone. And then we know that there are all kinds of hidden fees and, hidden conditions in these credit cards. And I'm going to identify at least 3 of them so that you can be cognizant of it when you're dealing with a credit card company. And then we're going to talk about some of the features of credit cards, like what does it mean to do a balance transfer? And you see, all these credit card companies, they'll come along and they're like, oh, transfer your balances to this one card. So we're going to talk about what that actually means. And is it good? Is it bad? What can it mean? And then cash advances. You can see most credit cards will come back and they'll say, oh, well, you can get a cash advance of this amount of your balance. We'll talk about what that means and what some of those fees are. And, is it good to use or not good to use, or how you should use it, or make a decision around using it if that's what you need to do. And then authorized users. Who's authorized to use your card? Do you allow other people to use your card? So we're going to talk about the benefits and the do's and don'ts around authorized users. and when to avoid using credit cards. So there are certain conditions or situations that you might find yourself in. And, credit cards are convenient. You pull them out your pocket and you're good to go. But there are some pitfalls and things that we want to help you understand about if you use it for all things and all situations. Where are some things you need to avoid or be cognizant of when you do make those decisions, and how you make sure you have a way out of it so that it doesn't create a pitfall or a financial disaster for yourself. And then credit card debt and personal loans. I thought this was an interesting topic to go over, because we think about credit card debt and we don't necessarily relate it to personal loans. We relate personal loans to something else. But I'm going to tie those two together in a way that can help you see that sometimes it might be a good connection, a good way out of credit card debt. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then credit card fraud and identity theft. So we have some ideas, when we think about credit card fraud, we think about, the cards being lost and stolen. We think about not knowing where it is. We definitely report it, but there are also some kinds of fraud that companies can do. And we want to share that with you so that when you go to look at your credit card statement, you'll know to make sure you're not being defrauded by the company that issued the card. Credit card thieves. Yes, that's part of it too. We're going to talk about that when we talk about skimming machines and different ways that people can fraud you and take your credit card information. So there's a section in here about that. Thank you for sharing and bringing that out. That's a very important subject that we need to talk about. Go back one, please. So what do we need to know about credit? Well, the first thing is, as we said, when we looked at the credit card report and your credit card score, your credit score, always review your credit report at least once a year. We know credit offers us a convenience for payment. It prohibits us from having to carry around a lot of cash. There are consumer protections when you use a credit card. You have the ability to purchase home, education, automobiles, and they may even have certain rewards. So if you use a credit card now, for groceries or gas, you can get 2%. There are all kinds of perks that credit card companies want to encourage you to use their credit cards, and they give you rewards. And those are good things, but you have to make sure you understand how to balance those things so that you're not using them more than you should and you're getting the rewards that you deserve. If it's mismanaged, it can be very expensive. It can create excessive debt very easily, and it can contribute to a financial crisis. So those are the things that when we go through this presentation, I'm hoping that you'll have information that will help you understand how not to mismanage it so that it doesn't become too expensive and it doesn't create excessive debt and it won't contribute to a financial crisis, because the knowledge about understanding the credit and understanding credit cards and how they're used and what they mean and how they're hidden fees and all the terms, those are the things that's going to help you manage your credit life. I would never say never use a credit card, because you can't live in today's society because they do offer a convenience. But I do hope that by sharing this information, we can all become wiser about how we use our credit. So there are 4 types of credit. There's a closed-end credit, there's open-ended credit, there's unsecured credit, and there's secured credit. So closed-end credit, that is more like your student loans, your personal loans, your mortgages, your car loans. And those are closed because they are issuing you a certain amount of money for a particular term with monthly payments that happen on a regular basis. So it's closed because it has a beginning and it has an end. Open-ended credit, those are revolving credit. So that's like your credit cards, lines of credit, store credit, and those you have access to as you're repaying it. So when you have a credit card, if you owe $100 and you pay off $100, well, you still have that credit card to use that $100 again. So it's a revolving credit. So it's open-ended because it doesn't have a beginning or an end. And even though it may have a minimum balance, you're not required to pay the minimum balance. You can always pay more. So that's why it's considered open-ended. Unsecured credit. So these are credit situations where a creditor is considering how much credit worthiness you have. They're looking at whether you've had a credit payment history, your capacity and your ability to repay the credit, and also whether or not your credit worthiness, your credit score, gives them the indication that you have a willingness to repay the debt. And you'll see unsecured when you go apply for a credit card. You know, even though the type of card may be revolving, it's unsecured because it's not attached to anything else that you own, which leads to secured credit cards. So secured credit, is a loan made based on you having to put up something in order to get that loan. So collateralized credit. So if you were to buy a house or you had a car, they're looking at your assets. Is this, if you take a personal loan and it's a secured loan, then what it's saying is, well, I'm looking at your assets. So if you have a house, I might put a lien on that house and seize that asset if you don't pay this loan back. So those are considered secured credit. So it's interesting when you go to apply for a personal loan, you can get a personal loan that's either unsecured and you'll have an associated increase fee or interest rate, or secured where you might get a lower interest rate because you're allowing them to attach a collateral to it, like your house or your car. Common credit terms. So we see these terms all the time, but I don't think we pay a lot of attention to them. We pay enough attention to them to get a sense of what they are, but we don't really understand to the fullest extent how they work. I think we all have a general knowledge, but when we get into this presentation, we're going to learn that some of these terms and how the card is being issued can have an impact on how we use that credit if we use this knowledge wisely. So the annual percentage rate, APR. So this is an interest rate that is either fixed or variable, and is charged on the outstanding balance of your debt. So if you owe $100, and you know when you get the credit cards, they tell you, oh, your APR is 21%. Well, what it's telling you is if you have a balance on this credit limit that I'm about to give you, I'm going to be charging you 21% on that balance. And different APRs can be charged to different types of transactions. So typically, if we use our credit card and we're going to a store and we're just buying a pocketbook or a food or something like that, that's considered a normal transaction. So your normal APR would be in effect if you left a balance as a result of using the card for that purchase. If you were to do a cash advance, then the APR for those transactions are higher than your normal APR. So instead of 21% on $100, if you say, well, I owe $100, I have a credit limit of $500, I'm going to go get a cash advance for $100. So that cash advance is not going to be 21%. That cash advance can go up as high as 29%. So you would be paying 29% on that $100, and you pay that immediately. The minute you take that money out, they're charging you 29% or more on that cash advance. So it's important to understand how the APR for your credit card is used for the types of transactions that you'll be using it for. No, go back. I'm sorry. Credit limit. So this is the amount that you can borrow on your account. So sometimes you'll have a credit limit of $1,000. So you have $1,000. Now, if you remember when we talked about your credit score, it said, well, if you have a credit limit of $1,000, to keep your credit score healthy, you don't want to have more than $500 that you're using at any one given time on that credit card. And you would like to, if possible, pay that $500 down as quickly as possible, because if you carry it too long, then you're being charged that annual percentage rate of 21% on whatever that balance is. So it's important to understand what your credit limit is so that you never go over the credit limit, because if you go over the credit limit, that's an additional over the limit fee. So that's all of that information in the fine print that says if you go over $1,000, then I'm going to get the opportunity to charge you an additional fee on top of the APR that is associated with the balance. And that's what the next item says, over limit fees. Those are done on any debt that exceeds the limit of a card. And when you do that, sometimes the issuer of the card will prevent you or preclude you from making any additional purchases until that is resolved. And now, in addition to an over the limit fee, you may also get charged with a late fee. So credit card companies make their money on fees. And it's important that we understand all these different fees and when they come into play, because that means that while we're thinking we're trying to get out of debt, we're actually increasing our debt. Late fees. If you pay your loan or credit card payment late, that's another fee that they can charge you. And all of this fine print is in the credit card paper that they send you. But, like most of us, when we get the card, you're not really paying attention and reading that fine print. We're just ready to have the card for convenience to use what we needed to use for. But this is a way for you to understand, take some time and look at it beforehand, or understand as much as you can beforehand before you accept the card, so that you'll understand how you can get the benefit of using that card. Now, grace period. So the grace period is typically a length of time that credit card companies give you before you have to pay the bill. So, they say, okay, I issued the bill on September, say November 20th, but the bill is due December 7th. So that means you have from the 20th to the 7th to make sure you pay that bill so that it's not considered late. Annual fees. Now, unlike APR, annual fees are the fees that the credit card company can charge just to have the card. So sometimes you'll have companies like American Express, depending on the type of card, they'll have an annual fee of, say, $100. It's going to cost you $100 just for me to give you the card. And then you'll have all these other fees on top of any balances, if you go over your limit, if you pay late. So all of these fees are important to understand. Joint accounts. So you can have an individual account or you can have a joint account. And the joint account is used, they look at both credit scores. So when you go and get a joint account, it's not just you, it's whoever you're signing up for the credit card or the loan with that they're looking at. And that will impact what kind of interest rate you get and how much credit you'll be given. Authorized user. Now we're going to talk about the authorized user a little more, but this is where you as a credit card owner will put someone else on your credit card to give them the authority to use it. Now, however they use it, you're still responsible for the bill. So you want to be really careful about assigning or allowing other people to use your credit card. And we'll talk about when it's somewhat okay and then when it's completely not okay. Thank you. Types of credit cards. So as I said, there are types of credit, and now there are types of credit cards. So your premium credit card. So this is for people who have really, really, really good credit. They get higher credit limits and they get lower interest rates. So they get fewer fees. And they don't typically have to pay an annual fee. So this is someone with really, really outstanding credit. A secured credit card. So this is when people who might try to reestablish their credit or establishing their credit for the first time, and credit card companies will give them a credit card and they say, okay, I'll give you a credit card limit of $750. But I want you to put some cash up front to secure it. So you might have to give them $200 and they'll put that $200 in escrow and give you the opportunity to have a card for $750. And they'll monitor it and see how you're using the card. And if you go for a certain period of time, you might go into having one that's not secured. But this is really used by credit card companies that want to help people establish credit for the first time or help them reestablish their credit because they had a problem with their credit in the past. Then there's your standard credit card. And this is like the middle range interest rate. So this is the one we typically see where they're talking, anywhere from 19 and above in terms of your interest rate. So these are the cards that are generally used by everyone. Then you have a business credit card. So people who have registered businesses like to have a business credit card because it helps them track and manage the credit that they use that's associated with their business. It's good for their tax reporting. It's good for their credit rating because it doesn't affect their personal cards. And you now have student credit cards. So these are initial cards for students, and you find that these are really, really low credit limits. Some of them may be no more than $100, and or a few $100s, and they're really just designed to give the student convenience of access without them having the ability to go over. And in many instances, some of the student credit cards are attached to a parent's income or something like that. Store and gas credit. These are different from Visa and MasterCard because they can only be used by that store or that gas station. So they're good if you have a designated type of way you want to use a card. Say you want a gas card and you're going to get points back. You can have a gas card and you're only going to use it for gas. Or if you have a department store card, this is another instance where you would have a card that's not a Visa or a MasterCard. It's just for that particular store. And then subprime, those are cards that are used with really high interest rates. And they're considered substandard credit cards. And it's not, it's different from a secure credit card. These are credit cards that you really have to be mindful of and not try to use or sign up for. Next slide. Okay, credit card terminology. So there's a lot of information on this slide, and I'm going to try to, give you a sense of it. Some of it you probably know, we've gone over, but it just tells you a little bit more about what the terminology is that is associated with a credit card. So the limit we talked about, the balance is what you owe. The interest is the interest of the percent of the credit card balance charged by the creditor. So it's a little different from the APR. So this is the one that you're charged by the creditor and the lender. So you can have multiple types of interest on a credit card. And it's important to understand that. And there could be multiple types of interest in any kind of loan. The grace period we talked about, your basic financial credit terms. So these talk about the fees, the terms, when the fees get applied, what the fees are. And this is all of the detail that comes in those little, inserts when you get your credit card. It's also a way for you to kind of look some of this up before you sign up for a card. Now, this is a good one, introductory rate. So you know how you might see credit card companies say, oh, I'll give you an introductory rate that is for a specific period of time. So for the first 6 months, your interest rate will be 9%. And then after 6 months, it'll jump to the regular APR of 21%. So that's important for you to understand, because if you know you're going to get this card and you might need to use it and you build up a lot of debt and you don't pay it off before that introductory rate or that period runs out, you'll end up owing more interest on that debt. Compound interest. This is additional interest that accrues on your interest added to your balance when it's not paid in full each month. So remember, we talked about if you have a balance of $100, you're paying the APR, 21%. Now they're saying, well, I'm compounding that interest because you didn't pay it in full. So now it's a compound interest on top of the APR. And we talked about authorized users, and we talked about the revolving credit. So I share this with you so that, we become, the more we know, And the more we understand the terminology and the types of cards, the wiser we can be in how we use our cards and how we establish debt on the card and how we create a strategy on how we're going to pay off the card when we do use it. So here's some more. So there's an annual fee. We talked about that. That's that fee that they charge you just to have the card. Then there's a balance computation method. So
Hey, Karen.
yes.
Real quick, thank you. Listen, thank you for this information. I got a question, if I could.
Sure.
I want to bring one of our parents from behind the scenes to come in and ask her question if we could.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So my question is, I'm about to put my business out there, but I do not own a credit card because I always believed in to save my money for something that I want. If I don't have the money, then I just don't get it. So my question is, is it important to have a credit card? And if so, how important is it to have the credit card?
Oh my, what an awesome question. And first, let me say kudos to you for paying yourself first and saving your money, because that is essential. However, if you were to apply for a loan, if you've never had a credit card, the issuer of the loan has no way of determining your credit worthiness. Okay. So it could be it could weigh against you. And so that first loan or that first credit card, you could end up with higher interest rates, because if you go for a personal loan, they have nothing to measure you on. Okay. So because they're going to be taking a risk on you, they might say, well, you might want 5,000, but I'm going to give you 3. You might, because you had a good job, you're saving your money, but you still have never had credit. So instead of giving you an interest rate of 10%, you might get an interest rate of 19%. So those are the reasons to establish a credit card, but the management of that card is just like you said. If you were to use it for a purchase, you already had the money saved, so you could either pay it all off before 30 days so that you don't have all that interest compounding on you, or if it's too big of a purchase to pay all off and you say, well, I know I'm going to pay this down in 30 days, in 60 days, you know that you're only going to have a limited exposure to the interest on the balance. But what an awesome question. Thank you so much.
You.
Please, more of that. Okay. So, as I was saying, the balance computation method. So, credit card companies, they make a lot of their money off of the fees. So they have a way to calculate the APR, apply it to a change, and then they look at your average daily balance over the month, and they kind of factor that in to an additional cost to you. So it's really important that you understand the terminology, understand what type of card you're using, understand some of the terminology and how it's applied so that you can manage your credit and your credit card usage. Your transfer, we're going to talk about balance transfers because that, they make it so enticing to transfer the debt of one credit card or multiple credit cards to one that it looks as though it has a lower interest rate. So most of these balance transfer cards do have a lower interest rate as part of the marketing scheme. But what they don't tell you and they tell you in the fine print is that after so many months or a grace period, it's going to go back to a normal interest rate. So that's why you have to really be mindful on a balance transfer. Cash advance, we'll talk a little bit more detail about this, but this is when you say, well, I got $1,000. I've spent like $200 in credit, but I need cash. So I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to get a cash advance on my card. Well, the minute you do that, you are paying a higher interest rate on that money you just pulled out. And I would say, if there was an emergency and there's nothing else, then you have to do what you have to do. But be mindful of what you're doing when you do that, and try to avoid using credit cards for loans of cash. So that's just something to be mindful of, and know that if you use it, you're going to be paying a really hefty interest rate. And then rewards. So, every card, just about every card out there nowadays has some kind of reward: cash back, airline discounts, points to redeem for certain shopping items, or other types of incentives. And these are good if you are the kind of person that tracks them and are going to be using the rewards that they offer. So if you have a card and it's saying, wow, I'm going to give you a reward on airline discounts, but you don't travel, then that reward isn't doing you any good. If you have one that says you can redeem certain points or so many points with every purchase, and then if you purchase again from me, I'll give you so much of that in cash off your next purchase, and you're going to use that a lot, then that might be a good card for you. So understand the rewards and how you use the card and what rewards are beneficial to you. We talked about late fees. If you don't pay on time, there's a late fee and other types of fees that can get added to your bottom line of what you might end up owing. And the finance charge, the monthly interest fee added to your account when the balance is not paid in full. So we know that there's an interest rate, and now we know that there's a finance charge. There could be an over the credit limit fee. There can be a late fee. There can be all kinds of compounded fees. So it's really important that you understand the detail attached to your card and how you're going to use it, so that you don't fall into paying down something and not paying it all off, and finding that the balance didn't go down as much as you thought it would, because they had these other finance charges and fees attached to it. That's why they say on average, it can take 30 something years to pay off a credit card if you're only paying the minimum balance or the minimum amount. So just be mindful of that. And then your credit card fees, charges for annual, monthly, cash back, international use, other fees. So, that's how they make their money. So quite naturally, if this is how they make their money, they're going to have these little hidden factors and hidden fees that are going to just keep coming to your bottom line of debt that you end up having to pay them for. So managing that card and understanding the terminology is really essential to you being able to use it to benefit you and not necessarily them. Go back one. Okay, hard and soft credit inquiries. What's the difference? And this is important for us to understand because, there are things that impact your credit score and there are things that don't impact it the same way. So a hard inquiry. So a hard inquiry is when a lender is going to make a decision to offer you a loan, to give you a loan. So all the time that you're kind of contemplating a loan and you're researching interest rates and, you're looking at this and looking at that, those are soft inquiries. But the minute you say to that lender, yes, I want the loan, then they're going to do a hard inquiry on your credit report. They're going to pull your credit and they're going to look at your credit score. They're going to look at your payment history. They're going to look at the type of credit you had. They're going to look at everything we talked about in the previous session on credit scores and credit reports. And that's how they're going to make a decision. Now, remember that we might be looking at Experian and TransUnion and all of that, and we see one score. But if you're going for a car loan, the car industry might have their own credit score or FICO reporting score that they use, and it's going to be different than what we see. So that's why you say, well, I walked in here, my credit score was, when I checked it, it was 725. And you sit down with the car dealer and he's like, oh, yeah, your score is 696. And you're like, what? How did that happen? And what they're not telling you is that they have their own scoring system that they use in the industry that's different from the scoring that we see in some of the credit agencies. So that's important to know. So it happens when you apply for a loan, when you apply for a house, when you apply for a car. And when they do that, you might see a slight dip in your credit score. And these type of inquiries can stay on your credit report for 1 to 2 years. Now, the big thing is if you're shopping around, one of the benefits that you say, well, I'm shopping for a car. So you might go, say, the GMC, and then you go the Cadillac, and you go. So if you're doing that within the first 14 to 45 days that you're looking for a car, that one inquiry is being used by all of those auto dealers. So that's why people shop around, because it's only one credit inquiry, one hard score. So everybody's looking at the same score. Now, if you go outside of that time frame, then they're looking at it again. They're pulling another credit report. So it's important that you do your shopping around within a very condensed time frame, so that if you go to Cadillac and you just came from GMC, you can say, yeah, I just looked at this. Someone already pulled it. Look to use that report. So that's the benefit or the exception to the hard inquiries. Soft inquiries. So this is where you're not being offered credit. You're shopping on your own for credit. So, and it can happen without your knowledge. So, employers can run credit reports before they hire you. If you're doing a promotion, if you're looking at a promotional credit card and you're not sure whether you want it, that's a soft pull. And you notice that when some of these credit card companies come to you, or some of these loan people who are offering loans come to you, they're like, this doesn't have an impact on your credit score, because they're considering a soft pull. And it's not until they make the decision to give you the loan or to give you the credit that it becomes a hard pull. And it's also interesting to know that in a promotional situation, they can say, oh, yeah, this looks really good. Based on what I can see right now, I might be able to offer you this loan or this car loan at like an interest rate of like 5%. And then when you go to pull your credit report, and they'll come back and say, oh, well, I didn't have your credit report in front of me, but now that I have it, I might not be able to do that 5%. I might be able to do like 7%. And so if you say no at that point, and you go someplace else. Well, now you had a hard pull. And if you're not doing your research within 14 to 45 days, somebody can pull your credit again. So that's something to be mindful of. And it can also be used for apartment rentals now. Some apartment homeowners who are renting out their apartments, they do credit checks. So it's really good to understand, if you check your report, background for employment, promotional offers, apartment rentals or home rentals, and even insurance agencies. They're all looking at a soft pull on your credit report. And is there an exception to it? Well, you can be pre-approved with a soft inquiry. That's what I was just talking about. And then when they go to do an actual offer, they do a hard pull. And that's where the interest rate can change. So if you're a first-time credit card user, these are some of the things that you might want to be mindful of. So when you don't have credit and you've never had credit, a creditor is looking at you and they may reject you because they don't have anything to measure you on. They might offer it to you, but your interest rate might be higher because you have never had credit. And so they'll say, well, I'll give you this limited credit limit, a lower credit limit, but a higher interest rate. And then if you make a late payment, it might be a small fee, but that late payment stays on your credit report for years. And even though they're supposed to remove that late payment once you restore it, they take forever, sometimes never, and you have to dispute it to get them to remove it. Fraudulent charges. If you've overcharged, make sure you look at your statements, match it with your bills and your receipts for purchases. And I'm going to talk a little bit about fraudulent charges and where, we can see some fraud and it's so tiny or small, it can be overlooked. That's why it's good to check your credit card statement with what you purchased during that month. Keep track of your receipts. And then, like I said, hidden charges, late payments or missed payments can result in an annual fee. So they can have something in the hidden state in the small print that said, oh, if you miss a payment, in addition to the late payment charge that the late fee I'm going to charge you, I might now charge you an annual fee to have my card. So you have to be really, really careful with all of those hidden charges. Okay, here's some ways that they can trick you. So one of them is they say, oh, I'm going to give you this low interest rate. And then if you look closely, it says as low as. So they say the interest rate is only 4%, but in the fine print, it says it's as low as 4% and as high as 24%. So those are the things that you have to look for when they say low interest rates. Look to see if there is a as low as in the small print. Fees. So there are annual fees that they can charge. Inactivity fees. So you might think you're doing a great thing. Oh, I paid that card off. I'm so happy I don't have that credit card debt anymore. And then you get a bill from the credit card company saying, well, you haven't used your card. So there's a fee for not using this card. So one of the things you have to manage is understanding, well, let me just, $25 here and pay it all because there might be an inactive fee. And then the late fee, we all know that they're definitely going to charge a late fee if you don't pay that bill on time. and then changes to your credit limit. So you might start out with $1,000 and you pay it off and you're using it occasionally, and not keeping a big debt. So they might say, oh, you know what? I'm going to increase your credit limit. And when they increase your credit limit, your credit score might drop a little bit, depending on how it's looking with the rest of the balances that you owe. Because remember, when we talked about your credit rating, it was all about the percentage of the ratio of debt to the amount of credit that you have available to you. And then if you say, well, I had $100 left on that credit card, let me spend up to $100. And if they hadn't taken the fact that you paid that bill by the time you charged that additional amount, if it hadn't been reconciled, you might be subject to an over the limit fee. And that could increase your credit, and they can increase your credit limit without you asking for it. So these are some of the things that companies can use to trick you. So you need to be mindful of what their rates are, what their fees are, and then how do you get increases to your credit limit. Balance transfers. So it allows you to transfer the balance of one card or multiple cards to one card. It can happen during the application process, or it can happen after the application has been approved. So if you're looking to do that, you need to make sure you understand, how does a balance transfer work for that particular card? Are you giving it to me during the application process, or are you giving it to me after I've been approved for the card? All of it is going to impact your credit. Your credit score is a factor in your eligibility for a balance transfer. So if you have a balance of, say, $1,000 on 3 cards, and you're paying, 19% interest on all 3, and you want to transfer that to a card that has a interest rate of, say, 10%. Well, the creditor is going to say, well, let me look at this credit card. Let me look at your credit score and see whether I think you're credit worthy to get a 10% card, regardless of the fact that you want to transfer your balances. They may say, well, I'll let you do 500, but not the whole thing. So those are things that you have to be mindful of in terms of what your credit score is when you go to try to use a card for a balance transfer. And you can talk to the creditor about all of this information before you sign up for it. Probe them, ask them questions, have them tell you what this is all about before you just sign on the dotted line to accept it. So what factors should you consider? What are the fees? Are there various fees when you go to transfer? If I get a low interest rate, but then you're attaching a fee, then where's the savings to you? Promotional introductory period. So if I transfer $1,000, but you tell me I got to pay it all off in 6 months, or that 10% you gave me is now going to go to 23%, those things you want to understand. Like, what is the period of this low interest rate for this balance transfer? And then, as I said, the interest rate for the promotional period ends, and then you're back to a regular rate. So if you're back to a regular rate on a balance that you had across 3 cards, or now you transferred it to this one card, you haven't paid it all off. So now you have a bigger interest rate. And then your transfer limits. How much can you transfer, and what are the factors? Well, we know your credit score, and then the limit on the new card. So if the limit on the card is only approved for $1,000, but you have 5,000 that you want to transfer, that's not a good card. That's not going to work for you. And then what are their internal policies about transfer? So that takes into account, when is it being issued to you? Is it at the application or at the time that it's completed? What is the length of time for this probationary or introductory period? So all of those things are their internal policies that you want them to explain to you before you say yes. So these are the ins and out of credit card advances. So we talked a little bit about this. So we know there are higher interest rates. So no matter the minute you pull that money out from a credit card, whatever that interest rate is gets applied immediately. And then the interest begins to accrue on cash advances. So the one thing about the cash advance on a card is it's an actual loan. So when you use the credit card for transactions, the credit card company is like, oh yeah, okay, we understand that, you might have multiple transactions. It's a revolving credit. You're going to pay me so much a month towards whatever balance you have. And we all understand that I'm going to have these fees that I attach to you for any balance that you keep, or if it's late or over the limit. So we all understand that. And that's all built in based on transactions and the types of transactions. Well, a cash advance is a transaction too. And they say, but on this transaction, all that other stuff doesn't apply. The only thing that's applying is the minute you take that money out, I'm going to increase that interest rate. So instead of, the 19%, I might be like at 29, 30% on a cash advance. And that's immediate. So when you get your next bill, it's going to show that you owe, for those normal transactions, $100 with, the 19% being applied. But when they see that that other money that you took out as your cash advance, that's going to be on that bill too. And that interest rate is not going to be at 19%. It might be at 30%. So you're going to be paying on that. And then if you don't pay it all off, then that is going to get compounded as well. So you got to be really, really careful when you use a cash advance, how you use your cash advance, and have a strategy on how you're going to be able to pay off that debt. Do's and don'ts for authorized users. So if you're in the house, if your family members are trying to establish credit or reestablish credit, you might, add your son or your spouse or your daughter to your card. But when you do that, you have to have some ground rules on, how the card is going to be used, so that as a family unit, you're controlling the spending to avoid any debt. And then you want to cut up all the card offers that are sent to your college age child, because you want to make sure they don't go in and just establish all this credit on their own without understanding the pitfalls, and then you being somewhat responsible. And then if you do have an authorized user, say you had your son or your daughter and they, got a job, moved out, got married, you want to make sure you take them off your card. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't put yourself as an authorized user on a stranger's card. So sometimes there are these predatory websites out there, and they'll say, oh, I'm going to help you build your credit by adding you to John Smith's credit card account. And the minute you do that, the first thing they've done is they've collected your personal information and they've charged you a large fee. And now someone has your information and could potentially have an issue. You can potentially have an issue with your identity and your credit, because now their credit is going to impact your credit. So all the negatives on that card will not only be on that stranger, they'll also be on you. So never, ever sign up as an authorized user on someone's card that you don't know, as a tactic and the illusion that is going to help you build your credit, because it doesn't. Next. Okay. 10 things you should never buy using a credit card. Now, I mean, some of these things we might use, but here's some rationale to keep in mind if you were to use it. So if you put your tuition on a credit card, the interest rates are really high. So now you're going to have a large number on a credit card with high interest rates, which can create a financial issue downstream. Weddings. Well, they don't advise using your credit card because you can lose track of spending. So if you're going to use it for a wedding, limit the area or the type of expenditure you're going to put it on. If you're going to use it just for the flowers, then use it just for the flowers, but don't have it open-ended to everything that you're going to use or have in your wedding, because you can lose track of your spending that way. Taxes. If you owe the IRS and you pay them with a credit card, they are going to have additional fees that they charge you. So you might not have a choice, but just be mindful that it's going to be more than what you owe the IRS, because they're going to attach a fee to it. Mortgages. Most mortgage companies won't let you pay your mortgage with a credit card. It's just, in many instances, it's just not allowed. They want that money to come directly from a bank. And in many instances, a lot of them will try to have an auto payment. You see the option auto pay. Let me just take it directly out of your account without you having to write me a check or anything. Vacation. Well, you know, if you go on vacation, you're having a good time, the convenience of a card is good. But again, be mindful how you're using it, because it can create debt. And if you don't have the backup funds at home to help mitigate what you put on that card, now you have a debt situation that you have to come up with a strategy to overcome. Medical bills. They don't advise using your card as a loan. They, find that you can always contact the medical provider and get a payment plan or something like that. But if you don't have to use your card, then it's good not to. Secret purchases. Now, I thought this was interesting when I saw this one. So they're saying, well, if you're buying something you don't want anybody to know, don't put it on the card, because the card is creating a record of everything that you purchase. Bar tabs. I thought that was interesting. They say use cash to avoid overspending. And then luxury items. If you can't pay for it, don't charge it. So these are just some things to keep in mind, not to say never use any of these things, but if you do, just be mindful of some of the, potential negative impact that they can have on your credit card utilization. Next. The benefits of consolidating your credit card debt to a personal loan. Well, If you can get a personal loan to consolidate your debt, you're going to pay less in interest because most personal loans, the interest rates are a lot lower than the 19 to 20% that you would pay on your credit cards, especially if they're multiples. You can pay the credit card balance faster because instead of it taking you 30 years to pay the minimum amount on all of the credit cards, especially if you spread yourself a little thin, in a personal loan, you can take that out for 3 to 5 years and pay all of it off and not have the personal loan or the credit card debt. If you take out a personal loan for $5,000, but you only have $3,000 in credit card debt, well, it gives you some excess money to use on other things. And instead of making multiple payments of 50 to 75 or whatever the number is, because you're trying to pay a little extra on each one of those cards, if you were able to consolidate that into a personal loan, you're making a single payment for multiple cards. And you have a fixed repayment period. So you can do it, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on the amount and the borrower, the lender. Next, credit card fraud, how to identify it. So, restaurants are the only situation where we actually give our card to someone and not expect that there could be fraud. Well, actually, they can put little fees or tips on your card that's outside of it. So you have to watch, when you get that bill, what was done. And now you see restaurants, they'll bring something to the table as opposed to taking the card away. Skimming machines. So this was one of the things about credit card thieves and skimming machines. So sometimes you can go to, I gave an example of a gas station. So you go to one gas station and then you go to the next one. You notice there's something on top of the other gas station where you would insert your card. That's considered a skimming machine, and it captures your personal information. I know not too long ago, they used to have these people who had the ability to walk by with this type of device and would pull magnetic information. And they came out with all of a sudden these RFID wallets and things like that make it challenging or more difficult for people to just be standing near you or walk by you and gather your credit card information. Applying for credit. So someone can open credit in your name. There's nothing you can do that. If someone applies, they know enough about you, or they use your name and make some of the other stuff up, or use someone else's social security. I mean, you have to be careful because there are people out here who would use your information. That's why they say, the dark web, and if is your credit card on the dark web, or even when you have these companies who have breaches. Well, what do you think the breach is? The breach means that someone got into their system and got access to your information, and now your information could be used. And that's why those companies come back and they say, well, we're going to offer you a monitoring of your credit report for a year so that you can see if something happened on it that you didn't do as part of that data breach that they had. Systematic overcharging. So companies can sometimes charge for things you didn't request. So say you have a subscription and you canceled the subscription, but then they act like they didn't really get it in time. And so you saw another charge, and you call and say, well, I canceled that. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. or I didn't get that, or we didn't process that, I'm sorry, but you had another charge. So that's why it's important to really, really look at your statements to make sure that you don't have any systematic overcharging going on. And then if you lose it, well, lost or stolen means that, fraud is potentially on the horizon, and you have to immediately call the company and stop the payment, ask them to do an investigation, so that you don't get charged for anything that happens after that particular point that you knew it was lost or stolen. Next, how to combat it. Review your statement. It's so important to review your statement. Look for small transactions. Most people are doing this with small transactions. I'll give you an example. Our children love these little games on their phone. And they say, oh, for 99 cents, you can buy, this little store, you could buy this house in this little meager world. Well, those are the kinds of transactions that are small, but can add up because it's 99 cents. And then you look and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't buy anything this month, but you see that 99 cents or that $1.99. So those are the kinds of charges that are small that you want to look out for, because most people, some people are using small transactions as a way to test whether you're looking at your credit card statement until they get to the point that they think you're ignoring it, and then you see something big come about. How to deal with credit card fraud? Well, the first thing is contact the company and ask them to begin an investigation. And depending on the severity, they might want a police report. And in some instances, they might want you to sign an affidavit that you didn't make the purchase in question. And then, you might be issued a new card, but they'll close the other one out before they issue the new card. And how do you prevent it? Well, really be careful how you store your credit card information. Don't use unsecure websites, writing information down and, or giving it to other people or having it someplace where other people can get access to it, can be pretty dangerous. And now you can have alerts. Credit card companies, banks, they'll send you alerts if you opt in. And they'll let you know if something suspicious is happening or a transaction came about that they're not typically used to seeing you do. You'll get an alert. Now, the one thing that's available to you, but it has some challenges associated with it, is if you were to call one of the 3 credit bureaus and tell them to freeze your account. Doesn't cost you anything, but it can prevent cards being opened in your name, but it can also create a challenge for you when you want to use that credit card or you want to open a new credit card. So, a freeze is something to use very cautiously if you ever had to. Well, this brings us to the end of our presentation today. And one of the things I want to encourage you to do is Industrial Bank has a free of charge, doesn't cost you a thing. You don't have to be a customer. You don't have to open an account. You just have to use this website, this link, and it will give you the ability to establish your own financial journey. It's not attached to any bank accounts. It just allows you to use all of the tutorials that are there to track your journey. It'll give you recommendations on what you need to do to meet a financial goal. So I encourage you, if you can, to just look into it. And you actually set up your own Enrich account free of charge for you to plot your journey and your financial success. Thank you for listening and taking time to join me today.
Well, Karen, thank you so much. As usual, a wealth of information. for us to digest, for us to dig back into, and to really sit on when we take an opportunity to really think where we're going with ourselves, our family, and as a community. Tawana, you want to share before we close out?
No, I think this was great because, all of these, topics and everything, it's things that are also real, things that are happening in our everyday lives. These are very important topics, very important.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're enjoying them. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying presenting it.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys, and we look forward to coming back next week with another topic. What we talking about? Housing?
Home
What's
ownership.
Home
home
ownership.
ownership?
Yes.
Yeah.
Y'all got y'all coins stacked up and saved up. Like, it's just have a conversation. Nobody's asking you to purchase nothing. We
Nope.
just talking about this. Like, you should be cooking, grabbing your plate, sitting down, and just grabbing some information. It don't cost you anything to tune in, to listen, to share, to hit the like button. Hey, even if you don't want to hear it, share it to somebody else so they can once again be able to be elevated in their situation as they have family and communities that they want to see grow. So thank you again. Also, remember that we have our coat drives going out. Follow us on all our social media platforms so you can be in tune with what's going on and where it's going on. Thank you again for all our leaders. Please understand we cannot do this without the resources and investments that is needed. And that's time, energy, and money. So please hit the donation button at Parents Engaging Parents, PEPNJ at .org. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.